Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of When Women Speak. And I am your host, Shirley Kay. When Women Speak is sponsored by Life on Power Enterprises and the brand What If She Knew She Was Powerful, a global consulting leadership development and women empowerment brand. Our guest today is NaTasha Grimes. NaTasha has a bachelor's degree in education and a master's degree in human resources training and development. And NaTasha is a certified personality trainer. And she's been teaching about the personality so long that her family, they described each other based on their personality traits. NaTasha is a speaker. She's a corporate leader, and she has spent also over 10 years as an elementary classroom teacher. NaTasha has served as a personal mentor and professional development coach for numerous growth minded individuals over the years. She helps them learn more about their unique DNA. That's their distinguishable, distinct natural abilities, which is their personalities and how they're wired. So, if you want to know more about how you can leverage your personality to meet your professional goals, or how to better interact and communicate with people from who are different than you, it's NaTasha. NaTasha, thank you so much for joining us. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Shirley. Really excited to be here.
We appreciate getting extracting all of this good stuff you were going to be talking about today. I was absolutely intrigued to learn that you are a certified personality coach. We hear DISC and we hear Myers Briggs and we have EQ and we have all different types of assessments and certifications, etc. But I was really excited to hear personality coach.
Ye-
So
Yeah.
why did you what happened and how did you even come across becoming a certified personality coach?
Yeah, well, so it's kind of really interesting for me. It was about 15 years ago I started reading books on personality and then really saw myself in what I was reading, saw my family in what I was reading. And it was not even that I had given them a personality test, right? Most of the time we have these assessments and tests and we get a label and we walk away. But this tool, what I use and what I was shared with, it really told me who I was without me ever taking a test. But then I saw how I could immediately implement and apply it to my life. And then it was really a game changer. At that time, I was a classroom teacher. I immediately began to see how I could use this with my students. Like, wow, now I understand why their behavior is this way. So it really gave a why behind the behaviors, it gave a why behind the communication style, the emotional needs, without me ever even having to give a formal assessment. And so from there, when I realized that there was a certification opportunity, I jumped on it because the teacher in me, because that's who I am, that's my calling. Even without the title of teacher, that's still what I do. I wanted everybody to learn. I wanted to be able to have the credentials to say, look, I've mastered this. I know this. I'm telling you, it's going to help you. And so that's kind of how it all started. It started with me just reading books, then finding that there was an opportunity for me to get certified in this tool. And the rest is history because it allows me to use visible cues and not just an assessment or a test, which, that's fine. But we don't want to just walk away with labels because it's not about a label. It's about growth and relationships.
Growth in relationships. Now, we promise you for the When Women Speak series that our guests are the perfect guests for the conversations that we're going to have. And so I don't know about you, but what you've heard so far from NaTasha, I'm excited to hear about her insight when it comes to amplifying the voices of women. So, NaTasha, what does it mean for you when you hear the statement, find her voice?
Yeah. So for me, it starts with the authentic self, the authentic DNA, who I am, because who you are as a person, as a woman first, but also as a person, actually, both together, it's going to really determine what your voice sounds like. So when I realize what my personality is like, when I realize who I am, then I'm speaking from a place of knowing that this is part of just the NaTasha that you're hearing, right? So sometimes we don't realize our value, what we bring. We look at other people and we're like, wow, they've got this amazing personality. I wish I was more like them. Well, that's their voice. And when I hear when women speak, if women understand their voice based on the combination of who they are, their DNA, their wiring, because you're wired for whatever that thing is you're going to do that no one else can do but you then realize the impact and influence that you have. But you first have to locate you. Sometimes we don't have a voice, or women don't know their voice because they haven't taken time to really do that self awareness, self examination of locating me. But when you do, wow, that authentic self as a woman showing up, you put those two together, you have so much to say, so much to share, so much influence. But you have to first, I think, find who you are. That I think for me, that's been critical and key, is that I'm speaking from a place of truly understanding who I am and not who I want to be. So finding your voice first, I believe, starts with finding you.
Who I am versus who I want to be. NaTasha talked about that we have we have a DNA to our voice, but first we have to locate ourselves, who we are versus who we want to be. Because let's be clear, it's okay to want to be, because that's why we create goals, right? And we have some strategy aligned with those goals. What we want to do in the next 3, 5, 7 years, etc. But I start with who I am first. So
Yes.
I start with my value first. And
Yes.
starting with my value first then gives me insight and accessibility to my DNA. That's what I heard you say, NaTasha.
Yeah, yeah. And let me just even add to that, like with the who I am and who I want to be, I'm a very growth-minded person. So I don't believe you can truly grow to be the best version of yourself until you understand who you are right here. Like first you got to locate you, and then we'll grow to that. But then sometimes we want to compare ourselves because we want our voice to look and sound like someone else. So when I'm saying who we want to be, make sure it's who you want to be as the best version of you, and not a duplicate or counterfeit version of somebody else.
There you go. And
Yeah.
that is why you people have heard me say, my audience have heard me say consistently that imposter syndrome is something I don't apply to because I'm not impersonating myself. But if you don't know exactly who you are and you haven't located you yet,
Yeah.
then that's when you feel like you're impersonating someone else because you haven't yet located you.
Yeah, yeah, because you can't walk into the room confidently if you don't know who you are. Like that imposter syndrome, like you said, I don't really identify with that. I think part of it is because of my personality. Pretty confident person, have always been that way. Since I was a child, probably my family would say she was confident when she shouldn't have been because she may or may not have known what she was talking about, but she believed she did. But when you recognize who you are, what you bring to the table, you aren't worried about what other people think. You're not worried about how you compare or stack up to someone else. And as women, if we all collectively find our voice, find that authentic self, I mean, we are a force to be reckoned with
Yeah,
anyway. Just
yeah.
imagine if we all walk in that room confidently knowing this is who I am, this is what I bring to the table. Yeah.
And that's how we really continue to shatter and crush the glass ceilings that we keep talking about. Because if we mentor and sponsor someone else, and when we leave that room, if there are two more coming up behind us that we sponsored and mentored, then that's how that glass ceiling begins to disintegrate, and we no longer have to crash and crush it. Wonderful conversation so far, man. We just started, NaTasha. So,
Yes.
NaTasha, although we're here and there's a lot of things that we've learned and we have access to, but all of us have had those experiences where we were voiceless. So,
Mhm.
can you talk about an experience whereas you had a voiceless experience?
Yeah. And so, ironically, oftentimes, people have their voiceless experience, or especially women within the workplace or a corporate setting. That's not where my voiceless experience was. Honestly, the places that I've worked, I've been blessed to be in organizations and companies. And even when I was a teacher, they saw me as valuable, and they valued what I brought to the table. But my voiceless experience was when I was in college. I was a junior, And my husband, who is my husband now, but at that time we were dating, been together for quite a while, I found out that I was pregnant in college, as a junior. And
Mm-hmm.
so we ended up getting married, and having my daughter. But the shame that I felt, because I was that person from the small rural town who made it to college. Nobody else in the family had done that. I had achieved something that was kind of almost unheard of, for where I grew up. Financially, wasn't even something that we thought my parents would be able to do. I just kind of figured it out. So when that happened, I felt shame. I felt like, wow, now the only thing, I shouldn't say the only thing, but my role now is to be a wife and mother. And I have messed up, so I can no longer be a role model to other women. And whereas before I was, helping other young people in the community in my small county, you can go to college, you can do this. I had always been the one who was aspiring for greater. Like, I just believed I was supposed to do so much. But when that happened, I just found myself becoming a shell of who I was, probably for about 2 or 3 years, because I was at home, I was taking care of my daughter, which was a very important job. But as someone who was young, you thought it was going to look one way, to be in college, graduate, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. And I didn't accomplish it in that time frame. Now, fast forward, we can see the degrees and all of that. But during that time, um, I lost my voice. I thought that my life was almost over. Like, it was that moment where I thought, I can't say anything to anybody else. Who am I to share, that you should be able to do this in school and go to college? Because I had messed up. In my mind, I had messed up to a point where I no longer had a right to try to motivate or help anyone else. But I realized that, now, that was just part of my journey, part of my story, and how really I could then share, the overcoming of that, and how I did go back and get my degree, and driving an hour and a half to get to school one way. Like, so my voice became even more amplified after
Yeah.
that because of that experience. But during that experience, it was, you really don't have anything to share or say anymore. Yeah.
Wow. So when your reality doesn't line up with your plan, and I
Mm,
think we can be very hard on ourselves because where you end up being the first here. You said the first from your town, one of the first, whether it's the first from your where you live, the first when you're talking about corporate America, the first in a family that's in the big city. Once
mhm,
we get to that first, the pressure to be perfect in that first, it
mm,
can be literally just, it can crush us.
yeah.
And how we know it can crush us is your response to
Mhm,
to be having a child.
yeah.
At you were in college, you had made it, and you had forgotten all about that. I got there, right? That
Yeah.
I got this
None of
far.
that mattered. None of that mattered anymore. It was, all I could see was in that moment. And it's interesting you bring up the first, but also, the perfectionist part. Like, part of who I am, I call myself a recovering perfectionist. I realize perfectionism is, it puts you in a prison. You can't really do anything if you think you have to do it perfectly. But I thought this was the way that everything was supposed to line up. And when it did not go according to my plan, because I'm still a planner, I'm still very much, driven and goal oriented. I want to accomplish this, that, and the other. I didn't see in that time how
Mhm.
any of that was going to work. We were both young. We were, my husband had just graduated college. He had a job. We had, this child coming. It was just like my world had just changed right before my eyes. But how many women have that same story, right? How many other women, in college, whatever season of your life, it may not have gone according to your plan. You may have made choices, or whatever, and things kind of got derailed. But if you don't see that, guess what? This is just a moment. It can leave you voiceless and feeling powerless almost.
And it is just a moment. I have quite a few mentees that contact me often, and the majority of the conversations are talking about experiences, whether they're in a workplace or they're in college, or they're in the middle of their career and they're really trying to get to this next level. But we talk about reframing a lot.
Mm,
So
yeah.
that's you should have goals on paper. You're supposed to do that. You're supposed to have a growth mindset, which means that you're driven. That's supposed to happen. But that growth mindset also propels us to reframe sometimes. And that means
Yes.
that this path didn't quite, I'm not quite there at this date in this time. But what else is there along this path that can propel me to still get to the same destination? Where
Hmm.
is it? And what is it? So
Yeah.
you talked about reframing in such a beautiful, using beautiful methods and how you did it that, it reminded me that that's what we're doing all the time. We're reframing.
Yes. Yes. Yeah.
Our goals don't mean that we can't take another route. Go
Yeah.
ahead, Natasha.
Yeah. No, I was going to say, and so it's interesting you use the word reframe and taking another route. So that was even kind of when I transitioned from being in education. I knew that I wanted to do something else. And sometimes people feel, that they're leaving the noble profession of teaching, and you're, how dare you? And not realizing that educators and teachers, especially women in education, we have other things we want to do. That doesn't mean we still don't have a heart for that. So I reframed, really not just from that experience, but then to take the next step. Okay, I want to do something outside of education. I'm still a teacher. No matter what I do, where I go, I'm still teaching. But that reframing, it's going to happen throughout our lifetime. So that growth mindset, the thought process for women to think that, I can do more. I hope that they hear that, because, or do something different. It's okay to want to do something different. I need different challenges. So for me, I wanted to do something outside of education. And then when I got this role, within one company, okay, well, now I want to do this. Well, now I want to do that. And it's okay. It's okay.
Man, Natasha said for the people in the back, it's okay to do what? What is it okay to do? To
Look,
want to
it's
do it?
to do something different, to want to make, changes, on my team. Currently I do have a team that reports to me with my job that I have outside of my business, and I'm always talking to them about what's your next. If I'm going to be your leader, I don't want to just keep you right here in this position. Like, let's talk about it. And so, bringing even the voice to the workplace from my experience as an educator, because oftentimes we don't, some of the teachers, we're some of the most humble people for whatever reason, and don't have the confidence outside of the classroom. But I even take that experience with me to say, you know what, my path to where I am in this organization, it didn't look like everybody else's. I don't have 20 years in the insurance industry, but look where I am. So you can do it too. You can reframe it. You can, however you want to call it, you can take a path to get to where you want, and it doesn't have to look like everybody else. And it's okay.
Absolutely. Man. Ooh, we are having some good convo here. This is exactly what When Women Speak series is absolutely about, taking a different perspective and insights from all of our guests and making sure that it works for you, that one person that's
Mhm.
listening to the show. Natasha, why should the voices of women in their values matter? Why should that matter?
Gosh, because we bring such a unique perspective. Most of the time when we are in certain settings, it is really honestly a male dominated setting. We bring our unique experiences from whether it's motherhood, whether it's different things from our bodies, and we want to have the voice for those things ourselves. I think about what I do for my profession with my company. We do a lot of management of leave plans and paid parental and all of those things, and I just think about who made the decision whether this company would or would not have this available. It doesn't matter to you, maybe because you're not a woman, but if you are a woman and you need maternity leave, or however much time to bond, what happens when we're not at the table? So I think our voices matter because we bring perspectives that are very unique. And if
Mhm.
we talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion, that's not just cultural, right? That's not just race. We need the women at the table because there are things that we're going to bring the value around whatever that subject matter is, and it's unique, right? Because some of our perspectives can only come from the woman. And you can speak on my behalf and try to have some understanding, and you can, if you take the time to do the work to learn. But there are some things I need to say on my own behalf. So I think for women, our voices matter so much because we don't want decisions made about us and for us and we're not a part of it. We need to be a part of those conversations and show up unapologetically and saying, yes, this is what I need, or this is what, will work for me, or this is what I want to do. And it should be okay. But I think sometimes we undervalue what we bring, but it's so important that we bring our perspective because it's needed.
Absolutely. And studies have shown over and over again that having diverse talent at that table, including the voices of women, impact the financial bottom line. Because let's be clear, as we talk about amplifying the voices of women, and while the values and voices of women matter, there are individuals, they're looking at the bottom line, because if we're
Mhm.
not making that bottom line, then how do we stay afloat? Get it, got it. I've been
Mhm.
on that boat and I know exactly what you're talking about. How do you
Mhm.
do that? You have distinct and diverse voices at the table. It is shown over and over again that that bottom line is decreased more, I think by 30% more for
Mhm.
companies that have a diverse talent at the table that includes women, the voices of women in that talent. Our perspectives are just different. And,
Absolutely.
and there is no discussion around that. It is, our perspectives are different. Ooh,
Absolutely.
Natasha, thank you for offering that information. Now, when I talk about voices and values, I remember when I was having this conversation with just some colleagues about voices and values, and the question is, why would you talk about values? Not that they, were supporting values or not, but because our perspectives are different, so our values are going to be different. That's why it's important not to just talk about our voices, but the values that we bring to that table as well in that environment.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We definitely, we bring a unique perspective. We bring values that may or may not align with someone else. So that means we need to bring it in the room. But hopefully, if you're watching, I know for me, the company, like I said, that I work for currently, and some of the other organizations I've been with, I've been thankful that they've allowed me to be the voice, for some who may not want to speak up. So when I am in the table, if you give me a seat, if I bring the table with me, or I'm sitting at it, however you want to call it, I'm going to speak up. And so not everyone is comfortable doing that, but it's needed. And it's so valuable, because I think about the ones who are potentially in a room and they don't feel confident enough to speak up. So it's needed, because the value we bring, it may or may not be heard depending on the woman that's in the room. So sometimes as a woman, you need to just make sure, just sometimes you're speaking on behalf of not just you, but others, because they need their voice heard, and they may not be at a place where they're strong enough to bring their voice the way that you may show up.
And you said something a few minutes ago that was critical, and what you do in managing, lead programs for organizations, and you think to yourself, well, who made the decision that a woman needs this amount of time for maternity
Yeah.
leave, or they don't
Yes.
need maternity leave? That's important. That I mean,
Mhm.
that we just delivered a whole baby. That's
Right.
Nobody knows that if you had not done that, or you have a friend that has done that. But having that voice and that perspective of, I know exactly what's needed in
Mhm.
the leave program that includes maternity leave, that
Right.
includes paternity leave as
Yes.
well
Yeah,
for
absolutely.
our. Mhm.
And there should be some pay, or what are those things? Because as a woman, or like you said, thankfully now they are giving paternity leave and bonding time. But what about when you feel pressed to go back because you're not getting paid? So I may get the time off, but it's not paid. So
Yeah.
all of those things matter, and they especially impact women, because oftentimes we're the ones who, typically have been expected to stay home with the child, if after the baby is born. Well, what if it is that I need additional time? Because also we do need to bond. We do need to have that opportunity. But if no one is at the table advocating
Mhm.
for that, then what happens? So I think the voice is so important, to have that perspective. And thankfully, I am seeing more and more companies do better about that. I know that's not necessarily the conversation today, but I am
Mhm.
seeing that. And I believe it's because women are speaking up. Women are at the table helping to make those decisions. So I am seeing more organizations change their company plans and add additional leave time or paid time off, even though as a country we may not. I do see companies stepping up and doing that.
Well, that's good to know. There are members of our audience that would have loved to hear that. That includes amplifying the voices of women.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
Natasha, the statement, leaving with your voice, it can convey various meanings, but what does that phrase, leaving with your voice, convey for you?
Yeah. So for me, when leaving with my voice means if I am in that place and I have an assignment or I am speaking, I then not only leave the voice of whatever it is that I said that hopefully was impactful, but my voice is going to go with me to the next place that I go. That I'm not going to just have it in this space, but I take it to the next space. Um, my purpose, whatever it is, my assignment is that thing that I'm doing, my experiences, my situation, my story. When I leave, that leaves with me, but I've also hopefully left a footprint where I was, right? I see it as leaving impact wherever I am, my DNA, my NaTasha, like I showed up and you heard me. And so I leave my voice with those people or that organization or with that woman, but I also leave with it. I take it with me wherever I go because wherever I go, wherever NaTasha goes, her voice is with her as well. And so it's unique to me because only my voice can be my voice, right? I can sound maybe like someone else. We have commonalities, we have shared values, but I leave with my voice. I'm not leaving with someone else's. I might take some perspectives from them. I may learn some things, and hopefully I will because, lifelong learner here. I believe in that. But when I leave, my voice goes with me. But at the same time, I've left part of my voice, hopefully to have an impact wherever I was. But now I'm leaving and I'm taking it to the next place because wherever I go, NaTasha's voice has to show up too.
I love that question because our guests have all different perspectives of that question. And I love your answer, Natasha. Be impactful enough so that when you leave physically, there are remnants of your voice left behind. Right.
Absolutely.
Be just
Absolutely.
that impactful while you are there.
Absolutely. Because sometimes you don't know who that one person is in that audience that needs to hear your story. I used to, and I'll be honest, when we talked about the voiceless question,
Yes.
I didn't share that story very often. It's only become recent that I've shared my college experience story. But then when I shared it, I think a few months ago, I realized that I wasn't the only one. And the young lady, she literally called me and said, "Could you mentor me?" Because I too had that experience. And so when I think about leaving with my voice, I left that particular group, right? And left that story there and it impacted her so. But guess what? I'm leaving with that story once again because someone else, that college student or that young professional, may need to
Mhm.
hear whatever that thing is that I just shared.
It's important that we share not just our wins, but we share struggles.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because our wins, someone sees, I can do that too. But when you add your struggles with it, I can do that in spite of, is what they hear and see then. Not just I can do it, I can too do it in spite
Mhm.
of. And that's important because that's how we get more women to be impactful with their voices, to
Yeah.
share really our struggles as well. Because if
Yeah.
all it is our wins, then it looks like I need to get to a perfected place when they
Right.
don't even know there was nothing perfect about getting.
No. Exactly. If I told you the whole story, you would see that I'm not telling you it's easy, but I'm telling you it's possible, right? You can do the
Absolutely.
same thing, but you have to share the story sometimes. I think oftentimes as women, we don't share maybe enough of our stories. And I know I've been guilty of that. It's really been more recent that I'll share in certain settings. I'll share this for, to grow or to teach you something, but not my own necessarily my personal story. I don't
Yes.
necessarily always do that. And so to start sharing the personal stories, but like you said, not just the wins, but here are the losses, not just my strengths, but here's my weaknesses, because this
Hmm.
personality right here is not perfect. There's some areas of growth and development here as well.
Listen, you just know what your personality is, but it's definitely not perfect.
Absolutely.
Natasha, what are some last words you have for the viewers?
I would say be confident in your voice. Don't try to duplicate someone else's. Know that your voice shows up in that room and it makes a difference. You bring value, you bring a fresh perspective. But in order to know your voice, make sure you know yourself, because my voice is as confident as it is because I know who I am. So if you can take the time to do the work to understand your natural voice, your authentic self, locate you there and grow to become the best version of yourself, but then show up in whatever space you have and share that. And you will do it so much more confidently if you've taken the time to do the self evaluation to know this is who I am and this is how I show up. Yes, I'm still working on some things, but look, let me share this with you. So take the time to do the work to learn you, grow you, and then use your voice. Use your voice. Don't try to be anybody else. Shirley is amazing, but I can't be Shirley. I can learn from her. So if we're not intimidated by what we see with others, understanding that you are uniquely you, and take that voice with you wherever you go.
I like the sequence that you use. Learn you, grow you, use your voice. So
Yes.
she didn't put use your voice first. Learn you, grow you, and
Mhm.
use your voice.
Yeah.
Wonderful
Yeah.
last words from you, NaTasha. This is another episode of When Women Speak with our guest, NaTasha Grimes. NaTasha, how does someone reach you? How do they contact you?
They can find me on Instagram at Ascension Solutions. I'm on Facebook at Ascension Solutions Consulting Group. My website is Ascension Solutions Consulting Group. I'm on LinkedIn as NaTasha Grimes, but definitely Ascension Solutions. If you put that in, you'll find me on Instagram, Facebook, and on my website.
I think it's going to be valuable that you find NaTasha, you connect with NaTasha, and you engage with NaTasha. This is another episode of When Women Speak, sponsored by Life on Power Enterprises and the brand What If She Knew She Was Powerful.